Hey, it's Friday, we're doing it, let's form check. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Form Check Friday. I'm Paul. Clint is asleep beautifully, as always. We're in Los Angeles. I'm in my parents' house visiting, and you should see the elaborate setup I've got going with all the cables and the lights and stuff. But I brought all my camera gear down this time, so hopefully it'll look better. Hopefully it'll sound better. We won't know till I talk for an hour and a half and then get into the editing software. But bear with me. Super excited to be back. Thank you for your patience last week. I was driving down to LA, but now I'm here and the weather is unbelievable. It's just perfect. So having a good time, but excited to be back and get into your form checks, which is why you're all here. So let's just do it. Let's see who submitted this week. As you guys know, as I always say, I have not seen any of these. So we're going to do it together. And looks like we got Drew coming back, who we've been working with for a little bit. And I think we got a new guy, which is good. It's always nice to have new people. So, all right, guys, let's get into it. Drew, hey, back again for the squat form check. You last told me to slow down the descent, and I really tried to focus on knees out, chest down simultaneously, then locking in the knees. Another cue was to think about pressing with the entire foot out of the bottom. Right. I think what I told you last time was I wanted you to stop hip driving and basically high bar your low bar. Try and just stand straight up, and let's see if we can overcorrect. I was thinking so much about form stuff that I lost count of my reps, so this is only 4. I did finish the set though. It's taking a long time, but I'm hell-bent on working this out. Thanks for your help. Here's the video. Backed off slightly to 245. I completely understand how frustrating this is, man. Like, some guys just get it. They're natural movers, and some guys get these weird movement patterns embedded in their head, and it's really hard to break. So I've been there, and you got the right attitude. So let's take a look and see how this week went. Let me kill the volume here, and we'll get into it, man. Beautiful rep. Beautiful. And you slowed it down, which is you were bombing into the bottom before. So you're going to bounce all over the place. This is a controlled descent. Depth is like unquestionable. You're nailing depth. Same bottom position we saw last time where you're just like, it's, oh my dude, look at, you're even holding your back when it gets, when you get into the grind, the sticking point, as we call it, so you get down, you get the bounce, and then you start to drive up, and you get up a couple inches, and then you hit that sticking point, right? That's where the work is in the squat. And that is a point that a lot of guys think, oh, I'm done hip driving, I'm just gonna lift my chest, and that kills your hip drive. You have to be able to maintain that back angle and push through the hip drive, push through that sticking point. But it's hard, right? Because that's where the work is. And what you were doing previously was allowing, partially because of form errors, but the bar was rolling up, your hips were shifting back. So the back angle became more horizontal, the bar rolled up higher on your neck, increasing that moment arm, which caused your back to go into flexion. So now as you're driving through that sticking point, what we see is this rounding of the upper back. Sorry, you got to bear with me here. We got some like gardeners and people coming by. So anyway, you're pushing through that sticking point, and then the back's going into flexion. So the bar's actually moving slightly down, and you're losing all that force. We want that back segment to be like a steel rod, so that all of the force from the hips and legs goes up to the bar and makes it move. If that's like a squishy segment, you're going to lose a lot of that power. And that's what was happening with you before. But even that rep I saw, even when it got hard, you were able to maintain that rigid extension and keep driving, which is like the key to this. Beautiful control, and then explosive on the way up, which is exactly what we want. Slow and controlled on the way down, fast explosive on the way up. Dude, This is an excellent, excellent squat, man. Like, these are the best squats I've ever, just setting that back angle early. By the halfway point, you're done leaning over. You're just locked in, man. You're not, look at, even that was the one. That's the one where kind of, you could have lost it there and you didn't. Like, dude, this is phenomenal, man. Like, I mean, these aren't just good squats for you. These are like some of the best squats I've seen. I'm speechless. Look at that. Oh, just, you're right. You're not shifting. The hips aren't going back. Let me pay attention to your knees here. You're getting the knees set. Beautiful depth, good pop out of the bottom. But that you were having such an issue with that upper back rounding. And look at that. Look at that arch. I mean, even there, you wanted to lift your head, but you kept that upper back, that chest up. Dude, where's my confetti? We got it. You nailed it, man. Just phenomenal. Like that is such a difference between the squats that every set I've seen you do was all kinds of errors, shifting around, flexion, knees not set, knees caving. And this is perfect. You're doing a perfect set of squats. And the depth is like, on top of that, you're crushing depth. Like, there's no question that you're deep enough. So, dude, home run. And like, just, I mean, this is easily 315 and beyond. So you're built to move weight, man. Like, you've got everything. You've got a big lower body. It was just, I mean, again, the speed, I know I was just going back and editing little clips from the previous episode, and I was editing the one where I'm telling you, slow it down so that you can make micro adjustments along the way and you're not just bouncing randomly, but like, you're hitting the bottom position perfectly. You're in the right place, which means you're set up to drive up correctly. Dude, I mean, like, I will be saving these squats as examples of a beautiful squat. Look at that. You're like, I'm going to lift my head. Nope, I'm not going to lift my head. I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to keep driving my hips. Home run, brother. Home run. And okay, so from here, you're going to keep going up and, be conservative, maybe 5 pounds. Once it locks in and you're confident and you feel like you've got it, it might start to fly. That happens a lot, right? Once you get used to the form, all the muscles that haven't been working or doing their correct share of the work sort of catch up. And then it might start to move quickly and you can make a few 10-pound jumps. But be conservative. Like, don't lose this, right? Because I don't want you to get to 315 and post it up and be like, I haven't been here in 3 months and here's 315. What do you think? And it's just back to the old ways. So this is your template. This is your example. And just keep doing this and insist on this form. I don't even care what the weight is. Like, this is fantastic. So 10 out of 10, man. You nailed it. I think we're done here. So I'm going to move on, but we're starting off Form Check Friday on a real good note. So congratulations. Way to stick with it. Proud of you. And this was a pleasure to watch the transformation because I know how frustrating it's been. So, all right, we're going to move on. Drew set the tone for the day. Let's keep going. All right, my man, Economics Queasy. Hello, Paul. From my form check 2 weeks ago, you had me working on getting bent over and setting the back angle faster. I have 2 videos, one work set and one pause at 70% with a tubo. All right. Terribly useful block of wood. For those of you who don't know, it's something we use to measure or to gauge the knee placement. So let's start with the heavier one and see if we need to reference the lighter one. All right. Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Yeah. So we're working on establishing your back angle, setting the knees. Okay. Let's see the struggle. Dude, like very, very good. This is night and day compared to what we saw before. Let me watch the lighter set and see. Oh, whoops. I'll go back and just see if some of the things I want to talk about are not a factor here. Oh, you're pausing. Okay. So you're lifting your chest too soon. I want you to hold on to that back angle higher up into the rep. Better. Like that one. Good. Okay. You're going too fast though. And that's kind of the main thing here. But yeah. Excellent. And the way that you're built, just so you know, you have long legs and a short torso. And that kind of looks funny when you squat, when you have an extreme version of that. You're going to be real horizontal. You're going to be very leaned over with that configuration. It's not wrong. It's just the way that you have to squat. So just be aware of that when you're comparing yourself to other people, that like you're built differently or you're built that way. Great. So if you notice the difference between, if we watch your back, so watch how quickly you lift your chest on the first rep and how much higher up you are before you lift your chest on the second rep. Okay. So we're talking about the ascent. You almost start lifting it right away. And on this one, you're going to stay in your hips longer. You're going to keep this angle and then lift. That's what I want. Okay. Good. You're not shifting back as much with the hips. But okay, so the way we're going to clean this up, the things you need to work on now, and this is like a huge improvement. We're just nitpicking now. You need to slow down the descent. And if you watched the form check I just did with Drew right before this, he was having a similar problem. He was going way too fast into the bottom. And what we told him the last form check Friday was slow it down. Slow and controlled on the way down, fast and explosive on the way up. Because if you bomb into the bottom, A, you're loose, which is sloppy. B, you don't know exactly which way you're going to bounce because there's so much momentum going down that you might hit the bottom and bounce into your knees. You might shift back into your hips. If you control the descent down at a smooth, controlled cadence, you're more likely to end up in the correct balanced bottom position. And if you're not in that correct balanced bottom position, you're screwed for the way up. Okay. Your best chance at nailing the second half of the rep, the ascent, is ending up in the correct balanced bottom position to start the ascent. And so you want to do that. You want to slow it down so you can make these micro adjustments along the way. Like I told Drew last time, if you watch a guy trying to squat 800 pounds, right? Go watch some powerlifting videos of guys setting like world record squats. The descent is like a snail's pace, because if they get that bar half an inch out of the groove, they're going to dump the whole thing over their head. It's that heavy. So you want to treat whatever you're squatting like that. And so that you know it's in the groove all the way down, right? And you can, if you feel yourself getting forward on the way down, you can kind of shift back and stuff like that. If you're just bombing into the bottom, you're introducing too much randomness there. You don't have control and you don't know, you're not sure that you're going to end up in the correct place to drive back up. So even that, when you kind of slid forward a little bit, you're staying the hip. You were having an issue with the hips shifting back. The hips are staying exactly where they need to be, more straight up. Getting out of your hips a little early there, lifting the chest. All right. So these are great. I mean, these are like markedly better than I've seen you do up to this point. Slow down the descent. You still need to get that leaned over a little bit longer. And part of the reason you're having a problem getting leaned over by the halfway point is you're dropping so fast. So if you slow down the descent, then you can focus more on setting the back angle by the halfway point, because you'll kind of know where the halfway point is versus just like start and I'm already at the bottom. Okay. That's great. And then you explode up. So the speed comes on the ascent. The descent, the purpose is to make sure that you end up in the right balance bottom position. The other thing that I want you to watch out for, and this is a tough one, is your upper back is a little bit soft. Okay. And as the weight increases, it's not bad, but as the weight increases, that arch, if it's soft, you're going to lose it even more. It's going to roll up your neck. So you're just getting a little flexion as you drive up. So I want you, when you practice these pause squats, I want you remember there's 3 questions you ask yourself at the bottom of the pause squat. Am I balanced over the middle of my foot, or am I on my toes or my heels? Are my knees as jacked out as they can be, or can I push them out harder? And is my chest arched and tight the way I had it set in the beginning? This position right here with this nice upper back extension, it should look like this when you're paused at the bottom, leaned over. Okay. And if you lose it, if it goes into flexion a little bit, as you drive up, it's going to get worse. So it's really important that you hold that flexion at the top and you just don't let it go. And I know you're thinking about 10 million things, the knees, the back angle, the balance, all that stuff. Don't forget about that, because that's kind of the last piece here. So when you're down here, right, I still think even at this first rep, before you're even that tired, that you can get this arched up more. Okay. It can be a little bit more like that. Elbows down, chest up. Okay. My chair doesn't rotate, so I'm kind of having an issue showing you. But because if that's soft, like I said, it's just going to get worse as the weight goes up. And then as it rounds more, it's going to roll up your back. We're going to be back to the same place that we were before. Okay. You're not far off here, but you can see that it softens a little bit as you start the drive up. See that? That was a good, okay. That's a great example right there. I'm going to slow this video down. Just keep an eye right here. Was that the one I wanted, or is it this one? Well, let's take a look. See that? You're nice, arched and tight. And then as you lean over, it softens. Let's see, it's a little more rounded, and then it rounds even more on the way up, right? Because you gave it up. So the next time you practice these, every time you practice your warm-ups, when you go down to the bottom and pause, when you're down here like this, right? If you can do this at the bottom when you're paused, if you can actually get a little more arch, then you let it go. Okay, you should be able to, what you want to do down there is try it. Like the way you check if your knees caved in is you try and push them out. If they move out, you let them come in. So if you get to the bottom and you can arch and it moves, you let it go at some point. And it's usually right away. It's usually as soon as the guys start to lean over, they just kind of forget about their back and they're focused on their knees and stuff like that. And they lose the arch. When you practice this long enough, it will, like, you won't have to think about it anymore. It'll just be embedded. You won't even have to focus on it. It's just your natural position. Okay. But you gotta drill it for a while before you get there. So that's your next task is in the pause, making sure that you haven't lost any of that arch. Okay. And I mean, so, you know, it's going to feel like you're kind of exaggerating it at the bottom, like trying to puff your chest up, like point your nipples at the wall. But that's what we need it to feel like right now, so that it doesn't get worse as the weight goes up. Okay. Aside from that, if you reduce the speed of the descent and you focus on keeping that upper back tight, you're going to be golden, man, because you fixed everything else. So we're 2 for 2 today. You guys are crushing it. This is a great, I'm going to take more weeks off, give you guys more time to practice, but excellent, man. Like, we're getting there. This is minor tweaks, stuff everybody deals with. And again, to be fair to you, because of your short torso and long legs, and meaning you're going to assume a more horizontal back angle, it's even harder for you than most guys to keep that upper back extension because of the horizontal back angle, right? That bar is trying to get your back to round. A guy who's the opposite, who's going to have a more vertical back angle, it's like he's going to be able to keep his back arched more, just like in the deadlift, where if you drop your hamstrings, you can set your back harder, right? But if you keep your hamstrings up high and produce a more vertical back angle, it's harder to keep that arch. So you're just kind of, that's the hand you were dealt, and you'll be able to do it, but it's just something to be aware of. So work on it, slow it down, show me. In fact, go back and watch Drew's, the guy right in this same episode right before you, watch the speed of his descent, okay? Now, because it's perfect. And then go back like 2 episodes and watch what he was doing before, because he's dropping quickly like you. And just slowing it down, it's like his squats were amazing today. So nothing but praise. Okay, you guys killed it. All right, good work. Thanks for the submission. Let's keep going. Dr. K, Neil. Paul, for the first time ever, you told me my squats look pretty good. It only took 9 months. We've been focusing on back extension, which I seem to have figured out. Your latest feedback was to tweak 2 things. Lean over more right away. Don't overextend the upper back. I focused on 2 more than 1, but I will work on leaning over more right away. I may have lost some hip drive while making these tweaks. Looking forward to your feedback. Okay, we're going to go 235 first, because we always want the heavier weight. And let's see how we're doing here. So you were kind of overdoing, like that's a little much, but good. Nope. See, yeah, you don't need to do that. Like that's overextension. I mean, let me preface this by saying these still look better than your squats were looking. Okay. See, there's no point in doing that excessive arch, right? If you're just going to give it up right away, right? The idea is that you set your back up and tight and you lock it before you lean over, and then it just doesn't move. If you arch it like super, like aggressively, overextend it, you can't hold that position, right? So as soon as you lean over, you're going to give it up. So you're just kind of wasting energy doing that. So you don't need to do, like, let's see what happens when you walk it out. Like, I want to see when you're underneath it, because this is probably the right amount for you. When you stand up straight. Yeah, that, like right about there. Like that's even a little much, but that's pretty good. But now you're going to try and do it even more, right? You're not going to be able to hold that. No one can. Without staying vertical. But then as soon as you lean over, you already gave it up, right? So, and then it's kind of back. So you can cut this out, this little thing. Just, where's the walkout? Let me see what happens when you get, like that. Okay? Like your natural position that you want to unrack the bar before you make an extra effort to arch it is perfect. So just, the goal is just hold that. Don't, and I'm sure I told you previously that you have to like exaggerate this because you weren't doing it at all. Okay? But this is what I want. Just a normal upper, like normal extension, just like that. And then just take a breath, hold that. Don't arch when you take your breath because you're good. And then the key thing though is as you lean over, don't lose it. Don't give it up. And that overextension is actually going to get in the way because you're going to feel it. Like as you lean over, it unlocks to go back to the normal position, and then you've already unlocked it, so it keeps unlocking. Rather than just setting it a reasonable amount, holding it, and then leaning over, okay? So then, and you kind of get it, you're doing that thing where you kind of set it again on the way up, or like right there. But that's good. Now, another easy thing like that pelvic tilt, you don't have to do that. You just need to take a breath, puff your chest up like that. That's perfect. Now your depth is a little high, and the quick fix for that is just narrow your stance about 2 inches. I mean, you're real close to good depth, but I think your stance is just a little wide. So if you just bring your feet in like a little bit, like just an inch on each side, maybe 2 at the most, you'll drop right down before you feel that stretch. So that's easy. Look at your wrist, by the way, right? On your right hand, it's like this, okay? That's not what we want. So I don't know if we talked about this, but I think that if we talked about this and you told me for some reason you can't do it, fine. If we haven't, I think that you need to switch to the thumbs around grip, because what's happening is with the thumb on top like that, it's so much easier to have your hand roll up on top of the bar and push the bar forward, and then that causes the flexion. If you, and there's a thread on Reddit that I wrote about the thumbs around grip, but basically I'm surprised I haven't told you this if I haven't, because I should have caught this a while ago. Thumbs around grip. Okay. So the thing with the thumbs around grip is it's really hard to adjust your grip width after you've taken the bar out, right? So you kind of got to guess where it is. Pay attention to what finger is on the rings. You're going to start wide, and as you warm up, you're going to bring your hands kind of one finger in at a time until you get it tight. But with a thumbs around grip, right, you just wrap your fingers around your thumb around the bar. Do not try and keep your wrist straight. The bar will sit in a bent wrist. That's okay. All right, that's what you want. So don't try and straighten it, because it's going to kill your grip. It's going to kill your wrist. Okay. And you're going to let the bar sit back in the fingers a little bit. Like don't try and hold it down here in your hand. Okay. Because it like way down in the palm, because it's not going to work. It's not going to feel very good. Let it, as you go under, kind of keep your grip loose and let it kind of roll back kind of where your calluses are. So it's bent. And that will allow you to kind of keep your chest up, let the bar kind of sit back in your wrists a little bit. And I think that's actually going to make a pretty big difference. Now, what I always tell guys when they switch to the thumbs around grip from the thumbs on top grip is you're going to hate this. It's going to feel horrible. You're going to feel like your wrists are going to snap. Give it 3 sessions. Give it 3 workouts before you quit on it. It takes about 3 workouts to get used to it. And you have to play around with the bar position, with the grip width, to find the place where most of the load is being taken up by the posterior deltoids, but most of the load is on your back, and just the hands are just kind of there for some extra support. It's way more pressure on the wrist than the thumbs on top. But if you can find a way to kind of shrug up and get that bar to sit on your traps more and just a little bit in the wrist, you will get used to it. This is the only grip I use now. It eliminates the need for it. It eliminates the possibility that you're going to get tendonitis mostly. I mean, almost all the time. And for guys who have this issue with like dumping the elbows up, allowing that bar to kind of roll back into the wrist helps them keep their chest up a little bit better. Okay. So look for that. Like I said, there's a thread somewhere on Reddit where I like wrote all this out. If you just look like thumbs around grip or something like that, I have all these key points written. God, my shoulder's like killing me. Look for that. And I think that with the narrower the narrower stance, that'll fix your depth. And I suspect that the grip might make a big difference. And again, if we've already talked about this and for some reason you couldn't do it and I forgot, I apologize. But I think that's going to be, and then just not trying to overextend. Okay. So, let's look at the lighter one just since we're here. Yeah. Narrow that stance. Yeah. These are really good. I mean, you're very close here. That was good depth. You did lose a little bit of hip drive, but dude, you're thinking about 10 million things right now. Setting the back angle, great here. You're establishing that back angle early. Knees are going out. That's excellent depth. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So maybe you could get a little more aggressive with the hip drive, but, okay. So dude, let's do this again next week. And I want you to show me the thumbs around grip. And again, like Some guys don't have a problem with it. Most guys complain like hell about it for 3 sessions and then all of a sudden they love it. Okay. So again, you start wide as you go through your warm-up sets. Every set or two, come in a finger width or a finger, width on the rings until you want it real tight in there, like tight and tight enough that you bunch up your traps and make a little cushion for that posterior deltoid. But you will get used to the wrist pressure. I promise. Like, I'm squatting in the 400s now and I always use bent wrists or a thumbs around grip, and I love it. It just feels better, more secure, no tendonitis, elbows feel good. But in your case, I really think it's going to make a difference being able to keep that upper back tight. Okay? So make those changes, stance, stop overextending, and use the thumbs around grip, play around with it, and let's see what that looks like. But we're very, very close here. Like, we're polishing. We're polishing. All right, brother. Thank you for keeping on or whatever. You're I know it's frustrating, but you're really getting there, like, compared to where we were when you kind of came back onto the scene. All right. We're going to keep going. Gmcourtney. Let's see. We got 2 more. Okay. Hi, Paul. First time form check here. Welcome. Male, 42, 170 to 180 pounds. 4-day split over a 3-day week. Top lifts from the past week. 147 squat was 215 by 5. Press, deadlift 265. 42. Okay. I'm nearing or in some lifts past my previous PRs from prior attempts at novice linear progression. So I figured it'd be a good time to look at myself on video, linked videos from my latest heavy squat. The main thing I'm curious for you is your opinion regarding depth. Okay, now we got the story. A couple years ago, worked with an SSC. One of the problems was going too deep sitting. Back then, I did some paused box squats. Okay, when I saw the video, my initial thought was I've overdone the correction. Okay, I'm skimming this because this is like a essay. No knock. You're new. It's okay. So my question, there we go. Am I hitting depth in your eyes? Is my it looks high impression just camera angle artifact, or do I have something else to address? Okay, Greg, welcome to the show. Love new guys. All right, Greg, let's see what's going on here, man. It's a nice rack. I mean, that's a nice little platform. Okay. Stance looks good. That's high. You're high. That's not a camera angle thing. Yeah. You're high. So I'm going to rattle off some things. That one was all right. I mean, still high, but. And you're lifting your chest a little too soon, so you're not getting the hip drive. That's partially because you're stopping high. Sliding into the knees. Okay, so look, I rattled off a bunch of errors, but overall, like, you get the gist of how to do this. We just need to kind of fine tune it. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is to slow down. Okay, if you watch the other form checks in this episode, we've had some guys really make a big difference in their form by just slowing down the descent. The ascent can be fast and explosive, as fast and explosive as it can be with all that weight on your back. But the descent, you should control that. It should be a controlled cadence. You are stretching into the bottom. If you just drop into the bottom, it's just, you're introducing so much potential for random movement. Knees are going to shift. You're going to bounce a different direction than you want to because you're just falling. Plus you're loose, right? Loose. To fall that quickly, you've got to loosen up. And so what the analogy I always use is, your adductor muscles are like rubber bands. If you pull on a rubber band, the farther back you pull that rubber band, the harder it is to pull it more. It slows down because of all that tension. If you're just dropping, that means things are moving and the rubber band is just shifting around. It's not stretching. So slow it down, man. Slow down the descent so you can make little micro adjustments with your balance along the way so that you have the best chance of ending up in a balanced bottom position. And then that's your best shot at getting up correctly, is starting the ascent perfectly balanced with everything where it should be. Okay, so slow down. Upper bar placement looks good. Grip looks fine. Stance looks fine. But you notice this little scoop here? So if you watch your knees here as you approach, I'm gonna slow this down so we can take a look at it. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So if you just pay attention to your knees here, watch how they you're kind of pushing forward, like you're shifting onto your toes a little bit. And then you're immediately, because you're going down and sliding forward, your weight's going forward. So your natural tendency is just to stop that by lifting your chest too early, which means you're killing your hip drive, right? Because your momentum is going towards your toes. Let's see if you get those knees. Yeah, and all of this has to do, this is just, you're missing one piece here. And it's kind of, all the other errors are stemming from that little issue, which is you're not sitting back into the bottom, okay? So the descent, there's two parts to the descent in the squat, the first half and the second half of the way down. The first half is you lean over and you set your back angle, okay? So by the halfway point, you're leaned over and you're doing a pretty good job of that. But the first half is, aside from leaning over, is knees forward and out. So the idea is you lean over and you set the knees all the way forward and out, okay? And you're doing a pretty good job of that. Like, you don't have a ton of, your knees aren't lagging behind. They're kind of, but see that shift on, it's because you're missing the second half of the descent, which is hips back and down. So part one, knees forward and out. Part two, hips back and down, which means you've got to lean over and put your knees forward, right? Fix your knee forward. And then the second half, once you get to that halfway point, you switch your focus to sitting back and stretching out those adductors by reaching back with your hips. The way that I tell people to think about this when they have a little block is the first half is toes and the second half is heels. So as you lean over and as you shove your knees forward and out, your weight should feel like it's slightly shifting onto your toes. It's going forward because you're leaning forward and you're pushing your knees forward. The hips back and down is heels because once you've set everything forward, now you need to shift back, right? Stretch back with the hips and allow yourself to hit depth by reaching back. So the weight should feel like it's kind of coming back on your heels a little bit. Now, ultimately, that's wrong. What we want is the weight stays even across the surface of the foot the whole time, right? Just like perfectly balanced the whole time. But it helps to think while you're learning this about weight distribution on the foot as toes, heels. Sometimes that helps, sometimes that clicks. So if you get to the bottom and your weight isn't back on your heels slightly, meaning you pulled it off the toes as you lean from the first part, then you're going to slide forward. First of all, you're never going to hit depth because you're going to get to, the bottom, the depth comes from that last little stretch that's where the stretch reflex is. And you're not really getting a stretch reflex because you're not getting all the way down. So you just need, like, this just needs to everything looks good. This just needs to drop back here. Like you're reaching back and you're dropping your butt down. So the weight is going to shift back a little bit, almost like you're setting up for a deadlift where you kind of rock back on your heels a little bit. Again, telling people that they should be on their heels at the bottom of the squat is not correct, but thinking about that might fix your problem of being too forward. So I'm trying to overcorrect here. All right. And that's really what all the other errors are stemming from. It's just, the lack of hip drive, the lifting the chest too soon, the sliding forward. All of this is just, you're not sitting back at the bottom, right? So you got to get out of your hips too soon. So, because it's you're doing a lot of things right here, man. So I don't want to dissuade, I don't want to discourage you. You've got a lot of this is good, most of it. It's just this, you're missing 2 inches of depth, 3 inches of depth, but that's going to change everything about how you come out of it, right? Because if you don't end up in the right bottom position, there's no way you're going to drive up correctly. So here's the fix. Okay. Aside from just sitting back more, I want you to go to HORNSTRENGTH.com, my website /videos. And it sounds like in your description that you've done some pause squat or box squats and stuff like that. If you go down here to legs, 2 videos, pause squat and bounce pause squat. So I'm not going to go into, I always talk about how these work. So I'm not going to go into like too much detail. All right, I'll give you a little bit, but both of these are going to help you, and you're going to do them with lightweight. If you click on the video, it'll open up a YouTube. In the YouTube description is like an essay on what I want you to do. But you're basically going to take lightweight, empty bar, 95 pounds, maybe 135, whatever. You're going to go down to the bottom and you're going to pause there and you're going to count to 3. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. In those 3 seconds, you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. Is my weight balanced on the middle of my foot, or is my weight on my toes or my heels? In your case, you're probably going to be on your toes. So, which means when you shift off your toes, it's going to feel like you're going to your heels a little bit. So if you go, oh, my weight's forward, you got 3 seconds, right? 1, 1,000, 2. So my weight's forward. Okay. Shift back, correct it, feel it. Okay. This is balance, and then come back up, right? Are my knees as shoved out as they can be, or did they cave in? I don't think you have that problem. And is my upper back arched and tight, or did I lose it? And you can try that. Your case is really just about weight distribution. So am I on my toes or my heels, or am I balanced? Okay. So you're going to go down, you're going to feel yourself forward. You're going to sit back. You're going to be like, oh, this is balance. Okay. Got it. Come up. Now every rep after that is a game. Can you go right to that balanced bottom position and pause for 3 seconds without having to change anything? Because you just landed in the right place. Again, slow down the descent, control it. But the goal is like, can you go there and just sit there for 3 seconds bored because you just nailed it perfectly? I do these for every warm-up set. I do these every time I squat, just to remind myself of where I am, where I need to be, and what the bottom position feels like. Okay, so it's an indispensable exercise. And with a little bit of weight, 95, 135, you will feel like when you shift back a little bit on your heels, you'll drop 2 inches deeper and you'll be like, oh, this is depth. Which then brings me to the bounce pause squat, which is the same thing, except before you come up, once you sit back and feel that stretch, then you're going to bounce your butt like a basketball 2 or 3 times and just feel the rhythm of the stretch reflex. Bounce, 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 and then you catch it and drive up. So it's the same thing as a pause squat. You sit there, you count to 3, but before you come back up, you feel that stretch in the groin, you feel the cadence, the rhythm, and then you try and catch it and drive up. And both of those together will teach you where depth is, where balance is, how to sit back, and what the stretch reflex really feels like. Okay? So I want you to work on those. And again, it's all in the description on YouTube. And then I want you to, I don't know, did you tell me how much weight this is? I don't remember. Maybe 215. Okay, whatever. Work on that, feel it. And then the next time you post next week, whenever you feel like you got it, I want you to post 2 videos or links to 2 videos. One of them is a set of your pause squats. Either the bounced ones, doesn't matter. Or just do the regular ones so I can make sure. And then post a work set. And let's see if there's a difference between, let's see if you're getting there on the pause squats correctly, because that's a big deal. And then let's see if it translates to your work set. And then if you remember, if you can link me back to this video in your next post so that it's fun to compare and be like, look at the difference between your work set after doing pause squats and your work set that you submitted in the first place. So anyway, let's do that. Am I hitting depth? I just want to make sure I hit your questions. No, you're not hitting depth. It's not a camera angle artifact. You do have something else to address, and I gave you some other feedback. Okay, so that's your homework, and you're not far off, man. I think it's going to make a huge difference. Let's see. Did you say that when a couple years ago, not catching the bounce, pause squats to a box for a light day? So a box will help you. It'll give you a target to aim for. But I really like doing them without a box because then we can work on that stretch reflex. A box kind of can be a little bit of a crutch. So there's a time and a place to use a box. But in your case, I think just practicing the bounce pause squats could work. And you do have a rack. So if you go to, where's that? The hornstrength.com/videos, I do have a video at the very bottom. It's like a useful tool for gauging depth where you strap a rubber band across the bottom here of your rack. You can see a demo in that video. And the rubber band's better for a box because you can't sit on it. It's just like a tactile, you can't unload on it. So that works for a lot of guys, but just play around with the pause squats and the bounce pause squats, and let's take another look in like a week or two, and whenever you think you got it, and we'll keep going, man. Thank you for the submission. Welcome to the crew. And I look forward to dialing this in and getting that squat to, come on, man, 315. Let's go. 42, 180. Yeah, we got to get to 315, and you can do it. All right. Have a good weekend. And last guy, El Wapo, my man. He's first. All right. Hey, Paul. Thanks again for your coaching. My squat still needs some work. Don't all of ours still need some work? I'm still struggling with hip drive, and I'm still working on setting my knees early. On the last rep of this set, I tried to exaggerate the hip drive and place my torso more horizontal. However, I'm worried the bar to start rolling up my neck or up my back. And I started, and I stalled a little coming out of the hole. I think it's more of a mental game where I'm still hesitant to be more horizontal. Thanks again for all you do for us. My pleasure. Also, I can't believe how much I now hate back offsets. After grinding through a top set of 5, the back offset is the last thing I want to do. I do them, but I'm not smiling. Yeah. Well, at least you don't have to do 5 sets of 5 ascending sets before your heavy set. And, if you're focused purely on strength training, you can also play with that back offset. And instead of doing, I'm assuming you're doing like the intermediate program where it's an 85% back off for, 8 reps or something like that. You can certainly go, I'm going to do a back off set of 5 reps at 90% of my top set. And there's nothing, sets of 5 are great. It's just a different approach. I like higher rep upper body stuff, but for the back off sets for the heavy stuff, I think the rep range is 5 to 8, but you can just cut it off at 5 and make it 90% and it'll keep it, 8s are cardio, man. 8s are tough. Okay, so, there's no wrong way to do it. As long as you're lifting heavy and getting close to failure, you'll be fine. All right, so let's take a look and see how you're doing here. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Give me some more. These are nice, man. These are good squats. Oh, there we go. That was a pretty good, you kind of hesitated and then you dropped down a little bit more. Boop. That's a good rep. And that's a good amount of hip drive right there. Yeah. This is a decent set of squats, my man. The problem is, the one problem that you have is you are all hips back. The whole thing starts. That's a good example. Let me see if I can pause it. Okay. Where's my controls? If we look at this rep, and I hope this is the right one. I think it's the next one. See, your weight is, you're too much, you're on your heels too much at the bottom. Okay, look at that. Hips, hips, hips. Knees are moving, and your knee is like, this is tough to do zoomed in. Oh, okay. But it's easier to see. So we get to the bottom. I mean, your knee is like behind your toe. I mean, that's a crappy line, but you've got all your weight back here, and mostly, and you're doing that from the beginning. And so your weight is too far back. And if you try and drive your butt up and really hip drive, you're gonna like fall back even further. Like you're gonna push your butt back even more, and you can't afford to go back even more, right? So the solution is you need more weight on your toes here, and you need to set that earlier in the descent. All of this is, your entire focus is just sitting back, sitting back, sitting back. And it's very common. Like it's a very common thing. Hips back, hips back, hips back, right? And then you kind of have to lift your chest because like you have to shift forward a little bit and lift your chest in order to get in order to fix this problem. And yeah, so, okay, let me see what you wrote and what I said, because I don't want to confuse you. But it's your form is like fantastic. Your position, your upper body tightness, the way that you move, the cadence of the descent, these are all like locked in. So this is a very minor little brain thing that we have to fix. And it's not that hard, actually. There are worse problems to have. So let me just make sure I read what you said. Still struggling with hip drive. The hip drive is stemming from the sitting back too much part. If if all your weight's on your heels, you can't hip drive. Setting the knees early on the last rep, I tried to exaggerate the hip drive and place my torso more horizontal. However, I'm worried that the bar started to roll up. I think that might be the best one you did. Let me see. I think you said your last rep. So before I give you my brilliant advice, let's see. Yeah, that's the one where you actually, you're like about to come back up where you normally would. And then you didn't actually lean over more. You just dropped your butt a little lower. Boop. And then you got a pop. Like, you see that? Like, look at the bounce. Boop. Like that was noticeable hip drive. That's what I'm talking about. So let's look at that rep. Sit. Yeah. And the reason that you got that hip drive and that bounce, that looked better. Okay, there was a little hesitation because it's new, but that looked better. The reason you were able to do that is because as you got lower, as you actually finished squatting to depth, your knees slid forward a little bit, right? And that's what knee slide is. If you don't set them all the way forward, when you get to the bottom all the way down, they have to pull you forward because they need to be in that position. Now, so you're normally stopping because you're not setting them forward most of the time all the way. As you descend, you're getting to the point where if you were to go deeper, you would see knee slide, but instead of seeing that, you just come back up, right? So you're not like fully committing to depth. Like, you're very close. You're very close. But let's look at this rep. Okay, I mean that's a legal squat, but for you, okay, that's where we're stopping there, and like no hip drive. Okay, and I mean we are talking about like millimeters here, but no hip drive. Now we come to this one, and watch your hip crease. Boop. You just, but watch your knee on this one. If I can get the timing right. If we keep your eye on your knee, just a little, I mean, dude, you are so close to this. This is the smallest deviations, and yet they make a big difference. So this is kind of cool. Okay, so the last one that you thought was kind of weird was actually probably the best one in terms of your hip drive. What happened was you finally committed to dropping your butt a little bit lower. The knees slid forward a little bit more. So you ended up where you should have been if you would set the knees all the way. And then because you got that little bit of extra depth, you got more of a pop and you got more of a more pronounced hip drive. So we know you can do it, right? We know you can do it. The deal here is you just have to stop thinking about sitting back so much. Okay. And we've had so many guys that have had this problem recently. And of course, because when you talk about the squat, everybody's sit back. You got to sit back into the bottom. You got to sit back. Knees have to go forward. Okay. Look. So even here, okay. So we're like, look at this. We're like past halfway and your knee is not even past this upright. So we can still see your toe out here, right? Now, let's look at where so your knee is somewhere behind this upright. So it's not where it needs to be. Your weight is too far back, you're too back on your heels, and you haven't set your knees fully forward. Let's see where it ends up. Now we can see your knee popping out, and let's see how much we can see your knee on this one. Now we see a lot of your knee here, right? Oh, look at that depth. This is the one where you got the bounce. And notice here, that the knee is like, the end of your knee is like basically right in line with your toe. Okay. So this is where your knee needs to be for you to get full depth, get the hip drive, get the pop, and do the squat correctly. I mean, like that, like, look at that. You got hip drive. Everything worked when you got your knee, when you went a little deeper and your knee slid forward, okay? We don't want your knee to slide forward, but you're so methodical about your descent, your cadence is so controlled that like your knee slide is like negligible. It's not even that big of a deal. If you were to go faster, that knee slide, and it's not moving that much because you're not that far off, but with more exaggerated knee slide, it will pull you forward. You'll bounce forward and up. Okay. So the solution is to get your knee to this position here, okay? That's where your knee needs to be. So you can get like a tubo, like a foam roller piece of pipe, and you can put it right here, right? And walk it out with, your warm-ups and stuff like that. And you touch that with your knee by the halfway point. Right? You can look up how using a tubo works. There's tons of videos on that. But it needs to be over your toe by the time you're here. Okay? That's it. So I just want you to stop thinking about sitting back. Don't worry about sitting back at all. Like you're gonna sit back. Okay? You need to worry about having more weight on your toes all the way down. Okay. So I want pressure on the balls of your feet. I want weight on your toes all the way down until the very end where you kind of sit back at the bottom. Like the last, let's call it 6 inches is where you're going to reach back. Other guys have different problems. We have to give them the opposite advice. But in your case, I want you just more weight. So as you lean over, toes. As you approach the bottom, heels. You're just heels all the way down. The whole time you're just thinking, sit back, sit back, sit back. Don't think about sit back anymore, okay? I want it to feel like you've got way too much weight on your toes. Don't worry about your back angle. Don't worry about how much you're leaning over. Don't worry about anything else. You're doing all that great. Just lean over, shove your knees forward, and keep more weight on your toes until you're 6 inches above the bottom, and then pop it up. Okay, I want to give you the least amount of things to think about. And the most important thing is that you got to get off your heels for 90% of the descent. And the last 10, you're allowed to sit back and find that rebound. So it's just lean over, knees like toes, 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 bounce, sit back and bounce and go. That's it. Control it and just keep more pressure on the balls of your feet. Don't think about anything else and you'll do every rep like you did the last one, which you thought was weird, which was the best one. Okay? So I wish there was something more exciting I could tell you about it, but it's really just you're on your heels too much for the descent. So get off your heels, put more weight on your toes, and you'll nail it, man. Okay, let's keep going. We had I want to keep working on this till we get. I see you screwed up now because I know you can do it. I saw it, so now I expect it. All right, brother. Thank you for sticking with me here and keeping, being resolute, and we'll get there. You're very close. You guys crushed it today. Like all of these were phenomenal. You guys are doing. I mean, this was like really one of my favorite episodes to do because we can see how much it's like paying off. You guys stick with it. It sucks. It's frustrated. I tell you every week you're doing everything wrong. And then it clicks. And it clicked today for a lot of people. So great job, guys. Happy to be back. And have a great weekend. I'm going to edit this and throw it up. And unless there's any reason not to, something comes up, I will plan to see you all again next Friday. And as always, thanks for being a part of this. So I wouldn't get to do this without you. So I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys soon.